For the past few weeks, many of us have been glued to classic Coronation Street on ITV3, watching the Harris family unravel following the murder of Tommy at the hand of his daughter Katy. Joining me today to reminisce about that story and other memories of being on the street is Lucy-Jo Hudson. Lucy-Jo, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I've loved revisiting this story for the first time in it's about 20 years, isn't it, since it was
Yeah,
on? Yeah, have you had
24 years.
have you had many fans reach out to you to say, "Oh, I've been watching it," or have you been watching any of it yourself?
Yeah. Oh no, I do not watch it because it was so long ago. There's a part of me going, was that actually me? I mean, I
Yeah.
remember it all like it was yesterday. But I've had loads of people saying they're still watching it, and it's crazy that after all these years, it's still been repeated. Still, people are still loving it and
Mm.
reminiscing and going back to when I think soaps were soaps. I think that's probably why they're on a little bit more now, all the old stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, I still can't believe it's still been televised and that people are still loving it.
Well, I just watched your funeral last week, so
I love
Katie's gone now.
Oh no, how
But
sad.
in the weeks running up to it, what really struck me was how much of a quivering wreck Katie was in the weeks after she killed her dad. What are your memories of filming this particular period? It looks like it must have been pretty intense for you.
Yeah, it was. And do you know what? The storyline, it actually was sort of dragged out over a whole year. So I
Mm.
remember filming Monday to Friday, 12-hour days, and then night shoots. And every scene was constant Katy crying, Katy sobbing, Katy's upset. Oh, she's crying again. Oh, she's sobbing again. And I was like, no, like for 12 hours a day, every day, for at least 9 months, I was having to cry every day. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I was desperate for a holiday after it.
I
So,
bet.
it was tough, really tough scenes, long days, but amazing to be given such a brilliant storyline back in the day.
Mm.
And working with Katherine Hunt, who played my mum, and Tommy Craig, who played my dad, and Richard Fleeshman, my brother, and
Mm.
all the other cast members who were a part of it all. But I had such an amazing little family on there. That as much as it was tough, everybody just helped you through it.
Yeah.
Even the crew were amazing, going, just have a minute, lie down, we'll come back to this scene. I was like, no, let's crack on. They're like, no, I think you need a minute. Like, because I ended up getting glandular fever towards the end
Oh
because I
no.
just the emotion. I couldn't speak, so they had to rewrite the last few scenes where I didn't actually speak because I had no voice. It had just completely gone. So I pushed myself to limits I never thought I had. And yeah, it was amazing. It was hard work, but it was amazing.
Were you able to switch off easily at the end of the day when you went home? Because I've having spoken to other Corrie actors before, I found that these kind of heightened stories can sometimes really take their toll on you out of work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can switch off. And it's just when you're doing it all day, every day, that emotion that you have to kind of dig deep to get that emotion because it's not just a case of just faking it or pretending. For me, I have to really feel it to deliver
Mm.
it. So sounds a bit thespian or not like that at all, but it had to be believable. So for me to believe it, I had to tell the story. So excuse me. So I found that on a weekend, I then couldn't stop crying and then go back into work and I'd be crying again. And then a
Yeah.
weekend, I'd like, don't stop crying. I was just in such a bad place, I think, doing all that. But that's just part and parcel that comes with it. Do you know what I mean? I could have
Mm.
had a bit of taste taken and pretended, but I just knew it wouldn't be as genuine and as real and come across as how I wanted it to. So yeah, it was heavy, but to be trusted with that storyline, I honestly it was amazing in such a big show, especially back then when it was
Yeah.
literally just, you had your 5 channels really, didn't you? You had a
Yeah,
bit of
exactly.
Sky, but it wasn't like it was now. So everybody was glued to soaps back then. So it was a huge thing. And it
Mm.
went on like I said, for about a year. So yeah, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you mentioned Richard Fleeshman earlier, and I've been particularly impressed by his performance in the wake of Tommy's death as well. I mean, he's a few years younger than you, obviously, and he had to summon some real tears too.
Oh, absolutely. But he is such a talented guy. I mean, back then he was a little boy. Now he's a proper man and he's doing amazing. He's been in America and he's singing around the world and he's doing dramas and he's gone on to big and amazing things. But back then he had a lot to deal with as well. And
Mm.
but he was so talented and such a lovely lad, and his family were in it as well. They were his mum and dad were actors, so I think they helped him with it as well. So yeah, it was amazing, really amazing to do.
In the scenes after Katie had killed Tommy, you had loads of scenes with Angela Katherine Hunt. Did you two talk about how big those scenes were going to be when they would eventually come to air and how important it would be to get those right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I pretty much stayed with Catherine for, I lived with her. She lived sort of Halifax, Huddersfield way. So I stayed with her for a while because we kind of had to work through it because we wanted to give it a little bit of a journey because all the scenes were quite heavy and
Mm.
traumatic. I didn't want it to be like that the whole time. I wanted it kind of to go in and out of, well, we both did really, to have a journey so that you weren't bored of constantly watching us crying. We had to find a bit of just some depth in it, really. So she helped me so much and helped me to like rein it back or push more. She sort of guided me through a lot of it, and I learned a lot from Catherine through the Cory days. So yeah, she
Yeah.
was unbelievable.
Yeah, you were incredible together, both of you, and then it led to what I would say was one of Cory's most traumatic deaths ever. That was
Oh,
heavy stuff.
do you know what? It's funny. I mean, it's not funny, is it at all? But watching it would have been quite tragic. But doing
Mm.
it, I was, have I seriously got to eat all this sugar? I mean, I don't know how many times we did it, having to eat chocolate bars and just spoonfuls of sugar. I was like, I'm going to need bloody dentures soon because my teeth are going to fall out. I was like, we've got to do it again. I had to literally just swallow this like spoonfuls of sugar. It was not the best. And to be fair, the director at the time was brilliant. It's like, we're not going to do it loads. I did it a few times and I was like, I'm going to gag. So that was a bit of light actually for me at the end filming something like that. But I know it was traumatic the way she went, and
Really,
yeah,
really
really,
was.
yeah.
I'd forgotten that you still had, a week or two left on the show after that as well, because you were laid out in hospital for a while as well, weren't you? At least you got a bit of a rest then.
Do you know what? Them scenes I found really hard, right?
Ah.
Out of everything, I think they were the worst because I can hear everybody around me, and I've got that awful thing that when something makes me like uncomfortable, it makes me laugh. So I was kind of lying there, and everyone's crying around, and I just wanted to laugh. I'm like, why am I laughing? This is not funny. I had to go into like just think of something else. But honestly, when Sean Wilson was coming to the bed and sobbing, I mean, he was doing such an amazing performance, and all I wanted to do was laugh because I was obviously having to keep this mask on and tubes in my mouth, up my nose, and trying to be still and not look your eyes. I think that's the hardest thing to do, to be honest, is actually play dead.
Yeah, it was like how when Vera Duckworth in the live episode, she had to be laid out in hospital one time, and it was like, you can't screw this up.
Yeah, you know what I think she did actually. I'm sure she trumped during that scene, and then after was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
So let's take ourselves back to the beginning of 2005. There were four Harrises on the street, but only 4 months later, only Craig was left. Do you remember how you all reacted as a family team, I suppose, when you heard what the producer had in store for you?
Yeah, so it's like anything. New producers come along, they want to do their thing. And I think at the time when Tony Woods took over, he knew what he wanted. So in his head, he had a plan to get rid of the Harris family because he just wasn't for him, maybe. So that kind of goes with it. This is the business year in and year out. And I had an amazing 4 years on it. It was a shock from getting us to the office and just going, right, I've got great news and some bad news. The bad news is you're going. The good news is it's an amazing storyline. So you're like, do I feel happy about that or not? I'm not sure. But then you just have to get on with it. And once you start reading the script, you're like, okay, this is amazing. I'd rather go out with a bang than just be kind of fizzled out. So
Yeah.
so we all took it in our stride. It is what it is. And I've been so blessed after 24 years of starting on that show that I've had some amazing jobs that have come my way that I've loved to do. And I think that's been because of Cory. Like, that was my backbone. I learned so much on that job. And it's helped me develop into the actress that I am today, I think.
What are your memories of the scene where you actually kill Tommy with a wrench? Because another incredibly dark scene there.
So dark. I was just so worried. I mean, obviously it was a plastic wrench. It
Mm.
wasn't real, so I could have contact, but we had stunt guys on there to show you what to do. But I had to really go for it, and I was just so conscious of actually hitting Tommy. I just did not want to actually hit him, so we had to time it. Whereas, because he couldn't see me, you just had to sort of like, we just had to keep practicing a bit of a rhythm together. Otherwise, I'm coming down, it's like
Mm.
boom, it's gone. So, and he shot it amazingly well, but I was more conscious of hitting him and not hitting him. But then it was a weird one. You kind of laughing doing it, thinking, this is crazy. This is so bad. I'm actually just going to kill my dad with a spanner. And for everybody else watching it, it's traumatic. For us at the moment, you're in a different place trying to make sure you do the right thing and it looks right and deliver it. But you're thinking, just don't hit him on the head. So, so
So,
yeah.
setting
Sorry.
aside kind of our real life morals here, do you think that Tommy deserved to die for what he'd done to the family?
No, absolutely not. No, I do. I mean, it's soap, isn't it? It's slightly exaggerated of life.
Mm.
And of course, what he did was horrific. And he shouldn't have done that because she wouldn't have had the abortion and led it to where it did. But Katy had problems, I think, for a long time. They're under witness protection from the
Yeah.
start. And she was quite a vulnerable kid. And I think that's why she looked up to the older guys to look after her and take her on, which is why she went with Martin Platt. It's so funny saying it. I'm like, oh my god, this was so long ago, but I do
Yeah.
remember it. But no, I don't think he deserved to die. Really, I think he, maybe shut him out of her life for a while, and then her just, move forward with Martin, and then see where it went. But
Mm.
it's so planned. So
Yeah. I mean, he was just trying to protect his daughter in a pretty cat-candid way, wasn't he?
yeah, absolutely. And you would, now I'm a mum to kids. I'd think my daughter going out with somebody, 10, 20 years older, I'd be like, absolutely not. No, what is going on? You
Mm.
just wouldn't you? You'd want to protect your kids. So I get
Yeah.
why, but he's always doing stuff in the wrong way.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and she just had a temper, and that temper just took over that day. And I don't think she meant to kill him,
Yeah.
but she just was like, just I have that such control over her life. She was like, you're not doing it anymore. And that just turned into what it did. So I think once she'd hit him, it was instant like,
Yeah.
what have I done? Dad, are you all right? And then knowing that she'd done what she'd done was just like she couldn't live with herself, and hence why she ended up taking her own life.
Mm. And Tommy wasn't all bad either, was he? I mean, he dove into the canal after the Platts when the car went in, so a bit of a hero
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, exactly. I forgot about that. And he was just a cheeky chappy, wasn't he? He was always there to help, but he was just very black and white. He
Yeah.
just knew. He would just say it as it was, and that
Mm.
was it. And I
Mm.
think the mum, Catherine, Angela, she used to always look after her kids and kind of be like, your dad's just doing it for this, your dad's just doing it for that, and sort of like soften the whole thing.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. So you touched on the age gap difference relationship between Katy and Martin earlier. I can't remember much about what the public's reaction to the story was at the time. Do you remember what people thought about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say, once I started my relationship with Martin Platt or in the show, the amount of abuse he used to get in the streets,
Really?
and I'm sure he did as well, being with somebody who was underage as well. She was a schoolgirl, so
Mm.
there's a bit you're crossing a line there. And I think he was a bit uncomfortable with it because of the age. I mean, obviously I was older. I
Mm.
was 18, 19, probably 20 by the time I started filming all that with him. But
Yeah.
it wasn't that, it was the fact that she was underage, so I think it was crossing lines there. So he probably got some abuse, I'm sure I did. And obviously towards the end of the storyline, I think people hated me on the streets. I kind of became a bit of a recluse because I was like, it's not real, I'm just pretending.
Yeah, yeah. Was it important for you to try and get under the character's skin and trying to think, well, what I'm doing with Martin here is perfectly normal? Because that's what Katy thought about it. She thought she was just being grown up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think that's all you can do when you get a script. Otherwise, like I say, if I don't kind of believe it and try and sell it, then it's not going to come across to the audience that it's genuine and it's
Mm.
real. So yeah, I think you do. On any character, you really have to get into the skin and believe their background and what they're about to sort of deliver it for the audience.
Yeah, yeah. Was the relationship with Martin something that had been planned right from the start when you came into the show?
I actually think it was. I think they spoke it. I think it was actually going to be Michael Lavelle, which is
Ah, Kevin.
Webster. I think the storyline was going to be with Kevin Webster, and then I
Mm.
don't know what happened. It sort of shifted and changed, and it ended up being given to Sean Wilson, who plays Martin Platt.
Mm.
But I think in the head they sort of had a plan of what they wanted to do. I didn't know that until obviously they spoke to me about it, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, where's this going? I thought it might just fizzle out, but I was like, oh no, this is ramping up. It's just getting bigger and bigger, and turned into how it did at the end.
That's interesting what you say about Mike Lavelle, because they ended up having that story in a way with when Kevin went off with Tyrone's wife Molly about 5, 6 years later. So
Oh, really? See,
yeah,
I should know stuff like that, but I'm a bit I do remember it actually. Yes, of course I remember it. Forgotten that girl's name now. I'm sure. Yeah, yeah, you're
yeah. It was
right.
Vicky
You're
Binns
right.
who played her, Molly Compton.
Beans, of course. So there you go. So I think they have their idea, and then they go, no, let's try it with this one. Or so they must do it in like the story meetings. They must work out some ideas what they want to do and who the characters are, and then maybe see who works better together. Maybe they just
Yeah.
thought, oh no, sure, I don't know. You just have
Mm.
to get your script and do as you're told.
So your story with Tommy and the death and everything kind of came at a time when I feel that Cory was trying to get a bit darker in tone. Did you get kind of a sense that that's where Cory was going, the production of it, while you were in the show?
Um, no, I didn't actually, because what happens is they tell you the storyline, but you don't get the scripts until you're about to film them. So you will not get them so far in advance that you can see what's happening.
Mm.
Um, I knew at the end I was going to die. I didn't know how or what I was going to do. I knew the storyline and the facts of it all, but I didn't know until I got the script. So it's hard to really guess how dark it's going to go. Obviously, when I knew then I was killing my dad, I was like, oh, this is heavy. And a lot of Killer Katy promotion stuff I had to do, and which I was like, well, at the time, I think because I was so young and it was my first job, I kind of just went with it. But now
Yeah.
looking back, I'm like, that was actually quite huge back then. Like, if I was to do that now, I would embrace it so much. But I think I was just kind of just going with it, like told what to do. Okay, I was still learning on the job, and I don't think at the time I realised how big it was. But yeah, it did get dark, and I think soaps have all got a little bit like that now, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
changed a
Sure.
lot. I think there's a lot of depth into the characters, but you kind of still want that comedy, don't you? Cory's always been about that, and I hope it's still doing a bit of that.
Yeah, well, while you were dying this week in Classic or last week in Classic Coronation Street, you had Fred Elliot trying to falling into a hole and finding an underground well, selling some water on
There
site.
you go.
And I think, and we've just had the Mel Hutchright story with Ian McKellen come in as well, which was a great comedy story. So
Oh yeah, I think that was after me. I think was
yeah,
it?
just
Yeah,
briefly.
think
So
it
you
was,
passed him.
yeah, that was amazing. I remember everyone going, "Oh my God, Sarah McKellen's coming," because I think he's always wanted to do Cory, hasn't he? He's
Yeah.
done all the amazing, mega movies in America, and he just wanted to be on Cory. So that was quite amazing, that one.
Coming in as a complete family unit as the Harrises did you have to like, audition? Did you have screen tests as a family to see that you would all work well together?
Yes. So when Cory came in, I remember my agent ringing me and saying, because I'd only just signed with an agent like a year before that, and I was more into theatre and dancing and all that sort of stuff.
Mm.
So I thought I'd go down the West End route. And then she did a bit of TV as well and radio and all that. And Cory came in saying, do you want to go for this? I was like, oh, I don't know. It's not something I perform on stage, but I'm not sure it's something I'll be good at. And they're like, yes, let's just go for it. Open the door. So I thought, okay, we'll do it. I went in, you get a script, so you just learn the scripts, get into the it's very different nowadays. Everything's all like this, it's all on camera, it's all
Yeah.
self. But back then you'd go into a room, you'd meet the production team and the casting directors and the directors, and you'd deliver the scene, and then off you pop. So, and then I did that, forgot about it, thought it's never going to happen, and I think it's about a month later they rang me going, they've got a recall for you. I was like, what? Like, what for me? All right, are you joking? I was like, oh my God, okay. So I went again, did the same thing, and it's something that has always stuck in my mind that if I go into an audition room, I want to wear the same outfit. If I go back to a recall, I want to wear the same outfit, so they remember, go, oh, that's that girl. So
Right.
I had a bit of an OCD thing of going back looking the same, resembling myself, that they just remember me. So I did it again, went away, and then again, I think it was another month or two went by. We'd like to come in for a screen test with your brothers now. So I'm like, what is this still going on? I thought they cast it. So I went back, and that's when I met Richard Fleeshman and a few other boys, and they paired us together with different boys to see the relationship, and you did a screen test with them again. This went on, by the way, for like 9 months.
Wow.
Like, I've never known a casting like series that I've never known anything that long.
Mm.
Normally you go for casting and you get it, you'll have a recall, and that's it. It's done within a couple of weeks. So this went on and on and on, which is why I kept thinking it's never going to happen. I've not heard it. That's it. And then it got to like the final screen test, and me and Richard were together, and we were like, oh my God, I really wanted it to be you. And he was like, I really wanted it to be you. And we just got so well through the auditions, because you're there all day, you're hanging around, you're in doing a little screen test with one of the other lads. I come back out, and then with Richard, and they mixed us around. So when we did the final one, it was me and Richard, and I was like, oh, I really hope you get it. And I remember doing the screen test, coming away going, listen, I probably won't see you again. I'm sure you're going to get this. Good luck with it all, blah, blah, blah. And then the next minute, I remember it happening with, I was at my grandma's house, who sadly passed now, bless her, but she was a massive fan of Cory. And back then, that was that generation wanted, your Cory, your
Yeah.
Emmerdale, all those. And I remember getting a phone call from my agent going, are you sitting down? And I was like, yeah, why? She was like, because you got the job. I was like, which job? She was like, Cory. I was like, it was just like, it was complete shock. I was like, "Oh, are you sure? Are you sure they want me? Are you sure?" Because like, I'm just, "Are you sure?" So I ran into my grandma's little. She had a little flat with my granddad, and I was like, "I've got the job on Cory." Like, it was more for them actually, because they were like, that was their dream to have one of their grandkids on something like that.
Mm.
So yeah, it was amazing. Sorry, I've gone on so long there, but it was a long process, like 9 months to get the job. And every time I'm thinking it's never going to happen. And when it did, I was like, this is just crazy. Like, little old me doing something like this.
Yeah. So who did you get close to on the cast apart from the Harris family members while you were working there?
So it was always me and the girls. So Nikki Sanderson, who I've just
Mhm.
worked with as well at Hollyoaks. So all the girls that were my age: Tina O'Brien, Samia, Longstrong Bomb now, Jane Danson, Julia Howarth, who used to be in it as well.
Mm.
She used to be Ashley's
Yeah, she's
wife.
Claire, wasn't she?
That's it, Claire. Yeah. So it was all us girls that we got together because we're all similar ages. Back then, there wasn't very many. There wasn't a big cast. You've got
Oh.
your boys and you've got your girls, and it was just, we all got on really well. But we were like a close group of girls, and probably the only girls that were that age. The rest of them were like your Liz Dawn,
Mm.
Barbara. They were all older. So we used to get on amazingly well, and I still speak to the girls, still message, and I mean, life's busy when you've got families and you're a bit more distant apart. You don't see each other as much, but yeah, they're all amazing. Like,
Mm.
Tina was my mate back then; she was amazing.
It's funny you should mention Tina and Nikki Sanderson actually, because one little treasure that some Cory fans might not know about is the Cory Funk Fit DVD that you three did
Oh
together. And
no!
I've been trying to. I've got a copy somewhere in the house. I've been searching around the attic this morning, but I've not been able to find it. But I do want to know what the story behind that is.
Oh my word. Some of the stuff we did, honestly, I'm like, why did we do that? I think we were just all caught up and it was like, that's a bit of fun. Why did we do that? Oh yeah, that'd be amazing. We were the most unfittest kids back then as well. I was slightly overweight. Tina loved a little smoke. Nikki was the only one that actually was really fit. And I was like, what are we doing? This is insane. Anyway, we had to get fit for it, and it was hard work. And we were thinking,
Mm.
oh, why are we doing this? Anyway, we did it because we thought we like, we were young and we were very easily like impressed with stuff. So we went along with it. But I think I've burnt the DVD now. I don't own a copy. I haven't seen it for 20 odd years. And I'm slightly embarrassed that I even did it, I'll be honest. But yeah, that was a strange one. I don't know why we did that, I'll be honest. I'm sure the girls would feel the same.
Hey, everyone seemed to be doing fitness DVDs. It was the era, wasn't it?
It probably was. Actually, you're right. It was. There was a lot going on back there, and I know my mum used to love the Rosemary Conley DVD. So I know they were all like a go. So we just jumped on the bandwagon clearly, and we're like, we were terrible. I don't even know what the figures were on the DVD sales, but probably zilch.
Well, I mean, looking at your Instagram, keeping healthy and fit and exercise are still pretty important to you now, aren't they?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, back then I went from dancing to then stopping dancing to then being an actress. So my diet was still the same, but I wasn't exercising. So I literally just ballooned over the Cory days because I was still eating my pasta meals, but I wasn't exercising or training. And so my diet was, not great back then. But as I've always loved my fitness. I've always loved dance. So I've always kind of tried to keep in shape as much as I can. So I think as I've got older, I've got more into it and understand it more and work out more and eat better. And I'm a parent as well, so that makes a difference. You want to feed your kids good stuff, don't you? So I'm definitely, yeah, I'm into it now. But back then, no.
We talked a bit about this earlier. You mentioned it, but after Coronation Street, you went on to some pretty big roles, didn't you? Wild at Heart, of course, Hollyoaks. How did those experiences compare to being on set on Coronation Street? Because Cory was your first TV job, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. So how did they compare?
Um, well, do you know what? I had the training on Cory, so to just, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see, like the technical side of hitting your mark and don't overlapping and not shadowing. And, there's so many things that you have to get right that I learned on that set that helped me then go into World at Heart. And it's funny, after finishing Cory, I was like, I need to get away, like I need to go abroad. And then World at Heart came on, I was like, brilliant, I get to work abroad. So I think I had a couple of months off and I went straight into that gig then. And I worked with Amanda Holden, who
Mhm.
took me under her wing, and she was amazing. And Stephen Tompkinson, they looked after me out there because I was only 21 as well, and I've not
Mm.
really been away from home. Like I lived in Leeds but worked in Manchester. This was like 12 hours on a plane.
Yeah.
So, and quite a shocking, different way of living out there. So, weather was amazing. But actually, going from a soap to a drama was a shock. So I was like, I was used to doing like 18, 19 scenes a day. I'd get the script and on the schedule, I'd be like, okay, I've got all that to do. So you've got loads of scenes to learn. And then I got to World to Heart, I was like, we're just filming 3 scenes. Why we're just doing 3 scenes today? Are you sure? It's good. What? And I realised drama's very different. Obviously, the cameras are very different. We're on location all the time, so you've got to set up the cameras every single shot and the lighting every single shot. So there's a lot of hanging around more in a drama. Soaps are like bang. You don't have time to rehearse. You get on set, you set up, you block it, and then you'll shoot it. And there's 3 or 4 cameras that are all on you. Cover it, move on. Whereas Wild at Heart, I'm like, we had to do it. I was like, we're doing the scene again. Are we doing the scene again? Are we doing it again? Like, we must have done it like 20 odd times. I'm thinking it was such a shock from going from like a fast pace to then, okay, we're slowing down now. This is how it is. So then I've got used to that now. I'd have a shock. Well, I did have a shock going to Hollyoaks, to be honest, because I was like, oh my God, how many scenes have I got to learn? I've gone from that. And I did a little film in between that went to the Cannes Film Festival, which was amazing. That was an amazing experience. But films are even slower. So I was like, it helped me with that as well. So I feel like I've done a few things that have helped me understand how it works and how they shoot things very differently. So yeah, I think I've been really blessed actually. Like it's tough, this industry, and I think it's getting tougher now.
Yeah.
Now there's so much to watch, with Sky and Netflix and Amazon Prime. There's so much out there. There's a lot of things getting produced, but there's just a lot of us wanting to get the jobs as well. So I think I've been blessed with the stuff I've had so far.
Weren't you in Doctors as well for a bit? Didn't you win an
Oh,
award for that?
yes, I did. Yeah, I forgot about that one. I did. So I went into Doctors. I read the script and I was like, "This is amazing. I've not seen the show, but what a brilliant script this is." So I did it because I really loved it. Went in. That is amazing. That is like, well, it was amazing. It's so sad that that's gone now because that was such a well-oiled machine. It was so slick and it was so professional, and it was a proper soap. They were as fast as Cory. They were on it. The cast were amazing. So, and it's actually I think it's a tough show to do because you've got your main cast, but every episode you've got like new people in. So they're having to teach people that have come from like uni or from college, or it's the first acting role, or it's people that are coming in as a guest every now and then. They're constantly working with new people, and some are inexperienced. So they're amazing how they work there. So that storyline was meant to be like a few weeks, and it ended up going on. It got extended then once we started doing what we're doing. Me and Andy Moss, who was amazing as well to work with. I think they thought, oh, we could go somewhere else with this. Clearly, I think every time I cry, they go, oh, she's good at crying. Let's get her crying more. Let's get her crying more. So that was another dark storyline. I didn't expect it to go that way, and I didn't know I was going to be turned into a bit of a villain either, because I won the Villain of the Year award, which I still was like, what? But that was an amazing experience. I loved that job. That was like 3 months I did on Doctors. So yeah, another amazing job that I was gifted.
Would you say that working on a soap opera is kind of a bit in your blood now? Are we going to expect to see you turning up on Emmerdale or EastEnders soon, or do you fancy something completely different as your next project?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never say never. I have had castings in the past for Emmerdale and stuff, but it's just not kind of worked my way. So, which is fine. That's how it is. Like the amount of times you go for auditions, and half the time it's a no. You just get on with it. But I would love to do a Netflix series. I'd love to do some more dramas. They've had some amazing dramas on ITV and BBC recently. And I know Netflix has taken off. I'd love to do that. Like Brassic. I love that comedy stuff as well. I'd love to do things like that. So it's just what will be, it won't pass you by, and it's all timing, and it's, things will work its way around. That's what I believe. So, but I'd love to do something for Netflix. That would be amazing.
Oh, brilliant. Well, best of luck for whatever does come up next. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been fascinating. It's been lovely reminiscing about the old stories.
Yeah, it has. It's been so long, but it's so vivid. It's so there. I just remember it like it was yesterday. It's crazy. So thank you for having me.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. I'll let you go. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.